Today we're bringing you 5 more of my favorite dark genes in ball pythons. If you haven't seen our first one of this, definitely give it a shot, either after this or go first and then come back. But dark genes are some of my favorite genes, and often it's been said when you get into ball pythons, you start off really wanting light genes, all the bananas and everything like that, and then you tend to find yourself kind of going more towards liking the dark side, but that's a little more nuanced than that. The dark genes aren't liked just because they're dark, it's because they bring amazing contrast to the already amazing light genes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Starting off with the cinnamon gene. Cinnamon is appropriately named because it gives a, well, kind of cinnamon look to the animal. Kind of brings in some more of these rusty undertones. Then these really deep, nice browns as well. Usually the pattern isn't quite as affected as much as the color, but the pattern certainly does have some different looks to it, more like chain linking these alien heads or keyholes, or it kind of tightens up the pattern, makes them a little bit closer. But overall just creates a little bit more of a darker undertone on the actual pattern of the animal too. You can see this on the head of the animal as well, especially when you get it into certain combos. It can definitely change quite variably. Cinnamon does have a super form, which is pretty extraordinary looking. However, unfortunately, super cinnamons are a little more prone to kinking issues. Normally, it's not a major amount more than what you normally would get, but it is more. So something to definitely consider if you are working this gene, but they are quite extraordinary. A super cinnamon is a really dark animal, sometimes just black or very grayish, and there's no pattern. So that is a cool animal, no doubt, but like our problems with the bell, you kind of run into this awesome animal and then you say, well, what next? Well, there's not much next to do because it's just pitch black. Some of the cooler combos you can make with super cinnamon, however, are things like the gray matter, which you would look at this and think it's a pied, but some of the magic that is involved with the champagne gene is definitely casting a spell on this. It definitely has the hallmarks of some sort of pied gene, but if you know what to look for, you're kind of not seeing everything. It's got the blotches, but no saddles really. Shifting gears into something that's a little bit more light would be something like this cinnamon enchi dreamsicle, which might also have mahogany in it, something that I believe we talked about in our last video. But 2 dark genes here, and you do not have a very dark snake. That is because it tag teams with lavender albino and enchi to create something very intense and very, very bright. We're talking about dark genes here, remind you, and this is far from being a dark snake in any way, shape, or form, but quite often you find a lot of the dark genes serve to enhance bright genes quite considerably. Another amazing super cinnamon combo would be the urban camo. There are little bits of everything perfect here. There are extremes in all the color palettes, both there being stark whites and very deep blacks, along with this gunmetal gray and some sprinkling in there, almost like Oreo crumbles kind of going through the back of the neck there. You can kind of see it, and then just spattered throughout it. You might think that this is something that's paradox, but this is quite common with the urban camo. You can see it here. This is a super pastel version of it. The genetics, by the way, are super cinnamon, pastel, and sandblast. Here's another one here with a little bit of a different flavor to it as well. Definitely some peaking on there. Definitely a little bit more lighter on this one and less blacks, but you can still see them kind of popping up in there a little bit. Sometimes when you put the cinnamon gene in things like clown, you kind of wipe the head pattern completely. This is a cinnamon mahogany clown right here, an adult at that too, but you see that nice cinnamon brown head there. So cinnamon is definitely a really versatile and beautiful gene that, whether you use it in the super form or choose to stay away from, has a lot of really wonderful applications that you can use it for. Moving on to our next top dark gene would be the leopard gene. Leopard is a very versatile gene. It can be used just about everywhere. I think it was introduced in the mid-2000s, so it has been put into a lot of different things. It really emboldens the dark parts of the snake while jumbling up the pattern crazy. And you can see here just kind of the amazing variety, just really bringing in these really nice dark blacks while doing something to the pattern, which is really extraordinary. And it's funny because it's really just doing that color change to the darks. The other color, pattern itself, kind of stays the same as a ball python, with just the head, everything dark. On the snake is amped up. Leopard does not have a super form, at least not in the traditional sense. It is actually thought that pretty much all of these genes have super forms, but they don't express it. Although in certain combos, maybe we find out that might be different. We're still learning quite a bit. Having been around for such a long time, of course, it has a lot of different awesome combos. We'd be here for a long time if we went through all of them, so let's just talk about some of them. First being the combination of spot nose and leopard. This just kind of brings brings in the best of both worlds, because spot nose really messes with the head and further messes with the pattern, so you just kind of get a double dose of this awesomeness. You can see here just on this leopard spot nose, the head clown doesn't affect really anything there, just gives it a really cool head pattern, and then just emboldens everything really, really dark while keeping everything messed up and exotic looking even for a ball python. The next step from there is to actually hit that clown version, and that is one of the most awesome combos you can get, being a Batman. The Batman morph fits these awesome, very dark blacks throughout it. The head pattern is minimal but still there, just creates this really nice, cool, sleek look, and then the pattern is very much all over the place or just kind of blotchy. Sometimes you get these little blotches going down the snake, like these little dots just here and there. Another really great combo to put this with is Desert Ghost, because Desert Ghost also enhances and emboldens things and just brings in this nice creamy type color. So what you end up getting here is blacks that just shine alongside a more bright and creamy coloring rather than the standard ball python pattern. So your contrast is absolutely outstanding because you're getting these really deep darks that are clean. There's no fading amongst these, and they age so darn well. Desert Ghost is an extraordinary one to pair with this. Another really great one is something that also jumbles up the pattern, and that would be Confusion. You might think that having two genes that do somewhat of a similar thing might just kind of wash each other out, and that certainly can happen, but it's not the case often. With the Leopard gene, you get some absolutely crazy pattern going throughout it, but it also emboldens the blacks, which again serves to strengthen the contrast even more. Here you just kind of have the granulated pattern, the deep jet blacks, which aren't really fading, and a very orangish type look. And now of course Confusion bellies are always wild. It looks like a hognose belly. You don't really get pattern on ball pythons bellies ever, but the Leopard ones, they embolden the blacks even down there. It's crazy. Another great one here that's not really dark at all, but has that sort of dark undertone to it, like this Leopard yellow belly Hurricane Coral Glow Clown. It's just definitely a bright snake, but look at these nice lavenders that it brings in. It is taking what Coral Glow or Banana end up doing to a snake and amping it up. It's just an extraordinary type look to it, like it's glowing from underneath. You can definitely tell, obviously, that it is flirting with darkness, that lavender. But of course, right next to it, you have the deep, dark neon oranges. You have these more burnt type oranges. You have oranges kind of blushing within the lavender type undertone. It just really creates this optical illusion of a 3D snake, showing again that you can really work these things for absolutely amazing contrasts. Here's an extraordinarily dark snake. Stranger is a dark gene. Blackhead by itself is a pretty dark gene, and Leopard brings in darkness and kind of meshes up pattern. What you have here looks like an ember of a piece of wood that is starting to burn out, where it just kind of is glowing. There is a lot of burnt type colors in here, but there is light underneath this. Look at these light oranges popping up from the bottom. Look at the head, same kind of color, is this much lighter orange tingish type color here, and the nose has a different kind of color to it. That little bit of a head stamp there has a different color to it. It's really an incredible animal, but just look at this, these rusty, almost reddish undertones throughout it, and this just absolutely exploded pattern. There's not much that I've seen that comes and grabs a color palette quite like this, where you are first looking at it and saying this is obviously a dark snake, but the more and more you look at it, it's glowing from inside of it, and it really just goes to show you how these genes just work together so incredible. Next up would be the chocolate gene. Chocolate is named pretty appropriately because it kind of gives this melting chocolate type of undertone to it. Mostly really a color type morph, creating a darker colored snake overall. Chocolate does have a super form that is incredibly visual. You can see it right here. It almost looks like somebody took a black type snake and put little Hershey's Kisses on them, and they just melted down the sides of them. Really incredible combo that can be used and utilized in many different ways. And of course, super forms are always super powerful because, well, they're always going to pass on one copy of their gene. Here's a really great example of what you can do with the super chocolate being in this super chocolate Hurricane. Again, it's 3 genes really. The Hurricane is just serving to mess up that pattern a little more, and Hurricane can bring in some different spice to the looks of it really, and just actually create something that looks like a Hershey's bar. Again, there are no recessives present here, so just imagine you get the clown, which is I'm sure what they wanted it to go for here, but this is the sort of color you're flirting with. And again, there's not too many genes out there that get like this. Again, a dark gene, but it's really calling out a nice pattern on the side of it, and just that beautiful chocolatey undertone is really calling out the pattern within it that's just kind of been shrunk into these small little balloons floating up from the belly of the snake. One of the most iconic combos that you can get with chocolate, however, is the Dark Knight. Dark Knight is a chocolate spot nose clown, and it probably doesn't hurt that this one has black pastel in it either. You get this just really deep dark undertone. Especially in this one, you kind of almost have these like reddish type hues just bursting bubbling up just underneath the surface here, seemingly about to erupt. But then look at the pattern too. It's got just a hint of yellows or slightly orangish type tints within the very top of these balloons or patterns, or in some cases these archways, but they are in otherwise very, very light seeming, and a lot of that has to do with the contrast, creating this awesome looking animal. Another really nice combo to put this with is Hypo, but we're going to take it a step further and put it with Puzzle too. The reason being is because Hypo really serves to lighten the animal up, so what you end up getting is this nice undertone of light just exuding from the animal, and Puzzle of course just really messes that pattern up crazily, and what you end up having here is an animal that almost looks like it's got moss going throughout its belly, just kind of coming up from it, almost to about halfway up the snake, kind of a greenish type glow to it, and Hypo can sometimes give that almost moss type look to certain things. And then when you go up towards the top, you have a much nicer ghostly type look into it, and the pattern has now been pushed up, which is what Puzzle can do, and just kind of goes across the entire dorsal of the animal. So an animal like this looks really incredible when you're looking down on it. When you're looking at ball pythons, often you're looking down on them because you're looking into their display case. It's definitely a really nice visual. Another really nice combo here, also paired with another dark gene that we just talked about, would be this chocolate hurricane, leopard, yellow belly, possible red striped clown. Just absolutely incredible, and again, much brighter. Look at all of the crazy pattern on the head, the nice color to the yellows and oranges that are popping up through there. They're bold, they're beautiful, they're clean, but then the blacks come in here as almost like an amalgamation of like a faded orange underneath of there, bursting through the blacks. It's really incredible while still creating this really great contrast. Here's an absolutely incredible animal right here, and it's taking that dark night and just adding cinnamon to it, what we had just previously talked about. You have a whole bunch of contrast here. The pattern is just incredibly creamy, but is also bordered by this just nice deep jet black, all while the background of the snake is a more shadowy black. It's just a really incredible contrast all throughout. It just goes to show you again that stacking some of these genes on top of each other, it's not about creating the darkest snake possible, it's about creating the most contrast possible. Next up would be the Black Pastel. Black Pastel has been around for a bit of time as well, since 2002. I believe it's named in contrast to kind of show off how Pastel was more light. This is the darker version of that. They are not related in any way, shape, or form, just so you know. This is a part of the 8-ball complex, just like Cinnamon is. So again, it is unfortunately, when you get the super form, a little more prone to kinking issues. So everything I said about Cinnamon, you can put it right here. I don't think it's a deal breaker necessarily for people to work it, but it is what it is. The Super Black Pastels themselves is one of the darkest snakes out there. Pretty similar to Cinnamon, but I feel like more often you get a little bit more of a darker snake out of these, or an incredibly deep dark snake that is hinting with a little bit of brown in there in some cases. It is an integral part of one of the more famous combos of the Black Pastel, and that would be the Panda Pied, which would be a Super Black Pastel pied. It creates this incredible contrast of just deep dark jet blacks on a stark white background. This is one of the best examples of a Panda Pied I have ever seen. It's got the tail obviously in there, it's got a couple blotches of black on there, and then just the head is just incredible, especially since it kind of has a white nose, so that's pretty unique. The reason I say that is because often Panda Pieds are very high white. In fact, there are definitely instances of Panda Pieds that are all white, but more often than not you will get a small blotch of black at the very least, even if it's on the head and then on the tail. But this is one of the more incredible ones I've ever seen. And there are other forms of Black Pastel actually out there, like the Barnhart Black Pastel, which is its own gene, by the way. It is in the same family, but for the longest time we thought that it was a polygenic trait, being that it was just an incredible example of it. But no, it is its own gene. You can kind of see that Barnhart Black Pastel seems to bring in a little more granulation. Another really crazy example of what you can do with Black Pastel would be something like this Acid Blackhead Black Pastel clown. Again, taking that blackhead gene from our last video and just creating something awesome. Acid is another morph that just kind of jumbles up the pattern. Very, very similar to Confusion. Not the same actually, but you just get something here that's not quite pitch black. It is dark, but look underneath, you get this nice white with just a little speck of black within it. You get a distinct pattern. You get this nice kind of cinnamony head with more just little dots of black throughout it. It's pretty incredible. Even near the belly, it's kind of a creamish color within the pattern. And then of course the cream de la crop of Black Pastel and what it can do would be the Pompeii. Pompeis are not just Black Pastel. They are a black pastel, red stripe, spot nose, yellow belly clown. And it creates, well, it's named for Mount Vesuvius exploding basically. So it looks like lava and ash are coming down on ancient structures. Pompeiis have been made in many different flavors at this point by many different people, including this combo where you just add chocolate and fire to it. It creates another layer on top of it where it's even more accentuated and bold and creamy and just great in all the perfect ways. Look at the sides and everything like this. It's just the perfect amount of everything. Flecks of black within the orange, which are still very vibrant, beautiful oranges. They're just this nice, creamy looking color. There's a whole bunch you can do with black pastel. It is an incredibly versatile gene. Obviously, working it into itself creates that nice black snake, but other than the panda pied, I honestly think that using it by itself is so incredible. There's so much you can do with it in so many different combinations, and you can see, like with these Pompeiis here, they're not dark, they're very light, showing that it is capable of working very, very nicely with lighter genes, creating probably the most recognizable ball python that has been created to date, and black pastel plays no small part in that. And finally, our last one that we're going to talk about today is the Wookie gene. This is also within the spider complex and has no issues whatsoever, but it definitely brings in more of a darker type color, some more black bolds, and then of course a goldenish brown type hue to it. So first, let's look at a combination from what we just talked about, the Wookie black pastel clown. There is an incredible amount of interaction between these two genes. The Wookie itself is creating this nice brown type look to it, and the combination is just bringing up these nice white sides, again adding to some crazy contrast. The pattern itself has this very golden orangish type look to it, much more keyhole or balloon-like, some of them chain linked together. The head is almost always wiped out on clown. It is just a stark, beautiful brown color, and I think that Wookie, while worked pretty well, I don't see it except for at like big shows, but it is an incredible, beautiful snake. Another one here, just adding yellow belly to that now. You again see these white sides coming up, just an even more rusty type color to that, like underneath the surface of this beautiful color. It just looks like something is about to erupt out of it. Again, everything is pretty clean. You get these nice golden orange sides. There's the head again, just even more slightly popping because of that yellow belly coming in there, probably helping those whites to even look better. Now let's step it back and get the Wookie black pastel. You notice I've put these two together quite a bit because they pair together incredibly, and they're both dark genes, but nothing we've looked at here screams dark, right? And this one is either Mojave or Phantom, which are incredibly similar. And you see an even more reduced pattern, which is from the Mojave or Phantom. They keyhole things even more, but nothing has really been lost in terms of its boldness, except that it has this frosted type look to it. Again, the white sides are there. It just seems like it's a little bit more so. Here's a Wookie raven clown. It's so cool when you get the heads that are just so different from the rest of the body. Creates this almost Woma python type contrast that you have such a different looking head to the rest of the body. The pattern itself just gives that chocolatey type look, just kind of melting throughout it. And again, this almost reddish rust type color just running down the back of it. Now we're going to dial it up a few notches, bringing back that Pompeii and putting Wookie in there as well. This is just bringing in another notch of just those nice undertones, those beautiful colors to it, just amping up that reddish type color. Another really beautiful animal showing the power of the Wookie gene, and it's really not dark all that much at all, except for the back. Wookie, orange dream, red stripe, leopard, vanilla, clown. And vanilla is very similar to fire if you don't know, but two dark genes. Yes, orange dream and vanilla do serve to lighten things up, but it shows that it works very well with it and create a really beautiful snake, super duper unique in being it's just kind of these blotches of lines going down the sides for the most part. It's kind of crazy. That's the sort of stuff you might consider that's going down the back of the snake, but not really here. They've broken up a few times and there's one little keyhole there, but just a really cool, unique look to it. And then finally, for our last one, would be one of the more famous combos, also an icon of ball pythons, would be the Kraken. The gray undertones are perfect while creating these just awesome little suction cups, which is where it's named from. It looks like the Kraken kind of grabbed onto it with its little suction cups and left these marks. You can see them even as they've aged. This is the original Kraken, I believe, and I would really like to see more and more and more, and really it's just Justin of Canova that has really just cornerstoned this. I believe others have made it, but it is an incredible animal, one that I would love to work in some regards someday, because it is absolutely out of this world. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this video and you want to learn more dark genes, then you can check out our first video on that right here.